Oh, the remote control works. Amazing. Good afternoon. Private hire guy here. It's Friday the 12th of February. Let's get into this. So, why do you want to be a private hire driver? I guess the reason that most people start is because it gives them flexibility to do, I guess, the so-called work when you want and when you don't want. That's an absolutely fine approach. There's absolutely no reason you shouldn't take that. But the one thing I think is really, really crucial to remember is that this is a business. It's not a hobby or I'll do a bit of this while I'm looking for jobs or whatever. It requires your full-time attention. And by that, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into actually getting your license before you've even taken your first customer. The costs you've got to factor in initially are the TfL application, if you're in London, which is basically about £650, £700. That includes your application fee to TfL and also then the granting of your license should you get it. That's done from TfL's website. You can download it and start the process, or you can do it manually via snail mail. I wouldn't recommend snail mail. Once you've got the application form, the first thing you need to do is a Dbs check, an enhanced Dbs check. Now this is basically a full deep dive into your background to make sure there's nothing flagging as showing you as being a danger to human beings generally. The DBS stands for Disclosure and Barring Service. It's a fairly straightforward process. You log on to their website and you put all your details in, pay them £50, give or take. They'll then take a week or so to do a deep dive into your criminal records, etc., assuming none exist. And then what happens is you'll get, initially, once you've submitted the request, you'll get a reference number. With that reference number, you can start the application process with TfL. If you don't have that reference number, you can't do anything. So the first thing you need to do is get your enhanced Dbs check process rolling, get that reference number. You can then submit that within your application to TfL. You are also going to need a medical carried out by almost certainly your GP. And again, this is a specific set of questions that are asked on a specific TfL form. So you have to download that form, make an appointment with your GP, probably get charged in the tune of about £80. Get an appointment with your GP, if that's still a thing in 2021. The GP will fill out the relevant boxes and, you know, with regards to any medication, etc. Do a quick eye test, weigh you, and then stamp it. Once you've got that, that's a good thing. Once you've got those things, you can then submit the application to Transport for London. They will then sit on it for, I don't know, however long it takes them to get to it and read it. They'll go through it, and at some point, probably 3 or 4 months later, it may be more at the moment. I got my license in February 2020. And I started the process in August 2019. So it was about 6 months start to finish. Yeah, so what will happen is for me, it was around 4 months later, I got an invitation to take what's called a topographical test. Now, the topographical test is a test you sit at a computer in a controlled environment. There are specific centres that do these tests. They vary in price depending on the location and the kind of skill set, I guess, of the centres. But essentially, you sit at a computer with a mouse and a copy of an A to Z. The A to Z is the Master Atlas of Greater London, and all the questions that you will be asked all focus around that. Some are really straightforward. It might just say, in the A to Z, where is the page reference and grid number for University College Hospital in London? So you get the A to Z, you thumb through it, you find it, page 41, grid reference 4A, you submit it. It's multiple choice, so there will be at least one other answer that's very similar to the correct one. So just make sure, even though you've looked it up in the back and you know it, just make sure that you are clicking the correct one. So you go through your multiple choice questions. They're fairly straightforward. Then it comes to the map reading. Now, my personal opinion of this bit of the test is that it's more about the ability to use a computer and a mouse than it is an A to Z, and I'll explain why. You will start by being given a green point on a map in London, and you can zoom in and out on it using your mouse, and a red point. So the green point will be your starting point, the red point will be your destination. And what you then have to do is, using the mouse, you have to click every couple of centimeters to show the route that you intend to take. That's the reason I say this is more about, being able to use a mouse, is that you have to then, every time you click, it creates a small line so you can actually see, the route forming. I know this sounds silly, but you've got to have it on the correct side of the road. You've also got to make sure that you don't cut any roundabouts. So literally when you get to the roundabout, you go round the roundabout and not kind of, well, I'm going in that direction. So that's the way the line will go. You've literally got to do it as if you were driving it. At the end, when you have reached your destination, you also have to make sure that you put your passenger down on the left-hand side. So no dropping them on the other side of the road, essentially. There are also questions about tunnels, which throw everybody. The most common one being the Blackwall, running under the O2, which is one way in and one way out. And there'll be a couple of flyover ones, like the Limehouse Link Tunnel, the Hammersmith flyover. And the reason these are in there are to make sure that, for example, one I had, luckily was a part of London I know very well, the A4 flyover at Hammersmith, and it's to make sure that as you come down that flyover from the elevated section onto Hammersmith Broadway, that you don't essentially jump off the flyover down onto the road underneath, that you do come off the A4 elevated section and shimmy down the actual flyover. These sound like really silly things, and actually they are. And that's why I say, it's more about being able to use the mouse correctly and physically pinpoint your route, than just dropping off the edge of because they will dock you points for that. The other point that I found really useful was you can zoom in using the mouse, so you can see the lay of the land and the street that you're starting out on. But I found it actually equally useful to zoom right out, because some of the routes they will give you, one might be directly above the other one. So you might start off at Knightsbridge and you're going up the top of the Edgware Road somewhere, which is essentially, so when you zoom out and see that it's a sort of south to north trip, it just makes it that little bit easier. Essentially you've got to go up the map in almost a straight line. They will throw a couple of curveballs in somewhere along the line, almost certainly with regards to roads that are closed. It'll say, right, you need to go from Knightsbridge to the Harrow Road, but making sure that you avoid Acacia Avenue, because it's currently got roadworks on it. So you have to map an alternate route. And the thing to remember is that it is always the quickest and most direct route. I shouldn't have said quickest, most direct. It's the most direct route for your customer from A to B. So you've submitted your money to TfL along with your background check and your medical, and you've taken your topographical test. You'll get the results from the topographical test in about a week. Then you may or may not get a follow-up from TfL. I did, regarding any medication or medical conditions you have. So I have a condition called sleep apnea, and what that means is basically I used to stop breathing at night while I was asleep and sort of wake myself up quite violently, and subsequently I wasn't sleeping as well as I thought I was. So I'd wake up very tired, find it very easy to fall asleep of an afternoon, which obviously as a private hire driver isn't ideal. So they query it and say, look, we see you've got sleep apnea. We need to know that your condition is under control and not going to affect the driving of passengers. So the reason I know I've got sleep apnea is I was diagnosed initially by my GP and then on at a local specialist hospital, at the lung and respiratory. And actually now I have to sleep with an air mask on at night that constantly pumps air into me and keeps my throat open, and now I sleep like a baby the full time I go to bed. But initially I was waking up, apparently the tests they did showed that I was waking up a minimum of 28 times every hour, so that's nearly, you know, once every other minute. So essentially I was getting half the sleep at night that I thought I was, which is accounted for so much tiredness and fatigue. Anyway, so I had to go to the contact the respiratory department at the hospital that did the diagnosis, and just ask them for us that there's a standard form they have that says, look, yes, this person has sleep apnea, but it's fully under control. We check him every 6 months, and his readings against his machine, because the device has a little memory card in it that you take in with your checkup, and they read it and they show, you can see that it's you're nearly hitting 100% of sleep every night. So yeah, and you submit that back to TfL, and they go, okay then. And then I had another query about, so initially when you submit your application, they guide you to a website, and that website has a bit of software on it that allows you to take like a passport photo, and it's quite clever. It tells you, you know, yes, no, left a bit, right a bit, and eventually it'll let go, yeah, this is a good photo, click, thank you very much. I got an email saying your photo's no good. So I phoned up TfL, and fortunately I got somebody who was really helpful, young guy. I explained the situation to him and he said okay, and I said, look, can I submit this photo to you, you know, while I'm talking to you? I've got my phone here, I can just do it and email it straight through. And he said, yeah. So it took a couple of goes. I had to do it with a completely bare wall behind me. I did it once at the door frame, that wasn't any good. And then he asked me to take my glasses off because the camera was reflecting in my specs. So okay, fine. Then he did it and he went, yeah, okay, I've got that, that's great. I'm now passing it on to the next department. So you don't really need to do any homework for that. Essentially, you are answering the questions that you're being asked. You have the A to Z with you. They will provide one. I think you have something like 2 hours to do the test. I did mine at a place in West London, in Isleworth, at a centre that primarily was a provider of security training for chauffeurs and etc., run by, they're all ex-military guys, but they also do the topographical test, and it's worth, you know, book an extra hour with them to just show you the intricacies of the test. I found that really useful. So that was that. I passed my topographical test. My Dbs check came back completely clean very early. That came back very quickly. And from that point, I just had to sit and wait for the various wheels of TfL to kind of line up, and then in around, middle of February, my license arrived. So you've got your TfL license, you're ready to go, right? No. What you then have to do, once you've got your car, is you need private hire insurance, specific private hire insurance, which is far more expensive than traditional comprehensive insurance. So definitely worth hunting around. I will leave a couple of links in the comments section for this video of the firm I used last year, which was really good, and the firm I used this year, which is a different one, but they were the two that I had anyway in mind last year. So I went with one last year, and I've just renewed with my first year's no claims with the other mob. So I'll leave links to those down in the description and you can check them out. The other thing that you need once you've got all of that is you need a vehicle license. A vehicle license is essentially a TfL MOT. So it's what you see in the cars, the little yellow disc or green disc, depending on the year, that sits in the front and back windscreens. So you have to book that in. That only takes about 20 minutes. You turn up with all your relevant documentation, insurance, logbook, etc., license, and they take it from you for about 20 minutes, and then you get the car back with the certificate and the discs in the front and rear windscreen. The next thing you need to do is sign up to drive with Uber, Ola, Bolt, whoever else you so desire. Now, this is a fairly uniform process across the apps. Essentially, you create a driver account, so that will be completely separate. If you've already got a normal account for any of those apps and you use them to hire cars to take you anywhere, you will need to create a separate driver account. And essentially what you have to do is create the account, log in, upload some documents, and take one of their statutory online training courses. They will require you to upload your full V55 or V5, sorry, logbook. I took a scan of the logbook, all 3 or 4 pages as one continuous scan. It just makes it easier when you're uploading it. I scanned in my private hire insurance certificate, my pink plastic driving license, and my TfL driving license, and also the vehicle license, a scan thereof. And in theory, once you've uploaded those, they've got some very clever software that goes away and makes sure you're genuine and you are who you say you are, and the insurance is valid, etc. And then you get a note back saying, you know, welcome to driving with Uber or whoever. I will say that Uber were by far the most difficult to onboard with. I did everything that they asked, and I kept getting a message saying, oh, one of your documents is wrong, and you phone them and you just get a different person who knows nothing about your previous phone call. And then they couldn't tell me what the document was. They just kept saying, oh, I need to escalate this to the relevant team, which seems to be a fairly standard line for when they just want to get you off the phone. It took me about a month to onboard with them, whereas Bolt and Ola, I think their checks took about 48 hours. And so once you've onboarded, assuming you get all your documents through okay and they come back to you nice and quickly, I had to go in via Van, or another app company, although they closed down or suspended their services at the beginning of the pandemic, sort of March, April last year, haven't been seen since. But they asked me to go in and once I'd got everything and just sign something and on board in person. That was just a crummy little office in North London somewhere, Islington. Bolt, I had to go into their office in Chiswick in West London, just off of Chiswick roundabout, and again that's where they take your photo and check all your documents again, etc. And then they kind of kick you out on the road. You know, you're ready to go. They don't give you any kind of training or anything. I had to watch a safety video with Uber at their office, as they call it, the Green Light Hub, up in Whitechapel. Essentially then you're ready to go. You flick your apps to say go online, and wait for the first one to ping, and then when it does, you accept the job. That's fine. You then get to your destination, and when you're ready to start the job, when your customer has come down and got in the car, you have another swipe to start the job. Then when you get to the destination, you have another one that says, right, you know, swipe to finish, and that's it. Now, personally, I know a lot of drivers like to have all the apps open. They will then, you know, take a job from the first one that comes in and maybe wait for a better one from one of the other 2 apps to come in, and they'll find some excuse to cancel the original job if a juicier one comes in. I don't do that. I take the first job that comes in. Let's say it's an Uber job, and I mark the Ola and Bolt apps as offline, so I can't take jobs, I'm unavailable. I just think that's the right and decent way to do things. It's you know, you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and that to me is by far, you know, the best way of doing it. I haven't got the energy to juggle all 3 apps and be waiting for a better job to come in. The main difference between the 3 apps, Uber and Ola will show you an amount, and that's the amount as you're waiting or deciding to accept the job on the screen. Beep, beep, beep. You'll accept it, it'll say £10. That's what you will end up with your bank account. Bolt are a little craftier. They'll show you the figure, but that will be before they take their cut. Now, Uber take 25%. Ola and Bolt take 15%. Also with Bolt, so you're looking at the gross figure, as it were, without it showing you what you'll end up with. They will also, if you look at the thing, show you what it will, if it includes a £1.50 charge back to you, little bonus if you like, for if you have to go into the congestion charge. So you'll have to pay congestion charge unless you're on for the moment, a plug-in hybrid. That'll change in October this year when you'll have to pay, or if you've got an electric car where you won't have to pay at all. So yeah, just be aware with Bolt that the price you see is not the price that you'll end up with in your bank account. And then it's a case of waiting to be paid. Uber payout currently on a Wednesday. Their week runs from Monday to Sunday, and then the payroll cut off. They sit on your money for a couple of weeks and then they give it to you on the Wednesday morning. I can't remember which way round it is. I think it's Bolt pay you weekly as well, and Ola pay you, I think, ad hoc, just as, you know, every couple of days or a couple of days after you've done a day's work. That's pretty much, you know, sums up the process. As I said at the beginning, the really important thing to remember is this is a business and you've got to treat it as a business. You know, I see lots of comments from people who are saying, oh, you know, my phone doesn't work properly, and they're using some really cheap and nasty phone, you know, and it's just not, you know, it's not fit for purpose. You've got to have a decent phone. You've got to obviously have a reliable car. I think the specification is under 10 years old, 5 doors. And the other thing is you need an MOT every 6 months. You know, even if you have a brand new car that doesn't need an MOT for 3 years, you have to have it MOT'd 6 months. That's in addition to the vehicle license that you have done right at the beginning when you first go on the road, and subsequently every 12 months. Yeah, so, you know, factor that in. Will you enjoy it? I don't know. I do. I like chatting to people. Every day is different. Every journey is different, etc., etc. So it you know, it's constantly changing, and I like that. I've been self-employed for many years, so, you know, I'm kind of used to setting my own hours, although I'm much stricter now with what I do. I make sure I like to start early, finish early. But, you know, when it's busy, and, you know, bearing in mind we're in a lockdown, so it's not horrendously busy at the moment. But, you know, when it is, I like the fact that if I'm out and about and I go, right, I'm finishing at, you know, 2 or 3 o'clock because I started early, if I want to, I'll carry on. Or I'll just go, no, I've had enough today. I've had a good day, so I'm heading home. So I hope you found that useful. If there's anything else you'd like to know or like clarified, leave me a comment below and I'll get back to you. Until the next time, this is Private Hire Guy. Pahaja. Stay safe.